Exposed. The amazing moment I discovered my daughter's touching wedding toast about my absence. Michael sat at the back of the church, the beams of sunlight piercing through the stained glass, but the warmth barely registered against the chill in his chest. It was her wedding day, an occasion most fathers anticipated with joy, but all he felt was a growing sense of impending dread. The crowd erupted in laughter as Emma, adorned in white silk, shared jokes with her friends, and yet he felt like an outsider, lost in a sea of smiles. His workload had stolen this pivotal moment, and the realization crushed him. How had he let his labor eclipse the precious time with his daughter? This union, a landmark in Emma's life, was also a painful mirror reflecting a past he wished he could rewrite. The missed milestones nagged at him. How many evenings had he sacrificed that could have been spent helping her with school projects or teaching her how to ride a bike? Each proud memory was tinged with guilt, weighing heavier on him as he silently questioned his choices. A good provider, he thought. Money meant stability, but what good was stability if he wasn't truly there? As Emma approached the altar, a mix of pride and sorrow gripped his heart. He thought of how he'd often chosen overtime, thinking of her bright future, convinced his sacrifice was noble. The irony stung now, making him feel like a ghost at his own daughter's wedding, unseen and unacknowledged. Would she even remember the times he was absent, lost in the shadows of a job that consumed him? Before he could spiral deeper into his thoughts, he caught the gaze of Emma, radiant with happiness, and he swallowed hard. The weight of the moment quietly shifted as he realized this day didn't just mark a celebration of love but also the potential repercussions of his absence. He was confrontational with himself, battling the notion that love was equal to financial security. As he wrestled with emotion, he was drawn back to the sound of laughter, each sound echoing like a reminder of what he had forfeited. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The atmosphere thickened as Emma stepped to the front, clinking her glass, the chimes signaling that it was time for her toast. Michael's heart raced, the chatter around him fading to silence as he braced himself for what she might say. Would she acknowledge his sacrifices? Or would she reveal the longing she held for their shared moments, times lost to the hands of hard work? Trembling now, he desperately wanted to leap over the chasm that had formed between them, to reach for her words, to grasp their meaning, to connect. As Emma began, tears shimmered in her eyes, and the room held its breath. Each sentence wrapped in love, yet heavy with the weight of their past, a beautiful symmetry of joy and sorrow that clawed at his gut. "Dad," she said, and the world narrowed to her voice, shaking with a plea. "I want you to see me as more than just the outcome of your labor." Michael's breath hitched, and for the first time, he feared the truth. Could he face the reality she unveiled? Anguished thoughts churned. The tides was turning, and now he was confronted by a choice that rippled through the fabric of their relationship. Would he find the courage to step forward and grasp the opportunity to bridge a lifetime of distance? Would he dare reach out to claim the love that had been hanging there, so tantalizingly close yet painfully out of reach? Michael clenched his fists, the tremors of doubt pulsing through him like a silent storm. Emma's words hung in the air, heavy as lead, igniting a flicker of something he had buried deep, the genuine desire for connection. He could still turn away, pretend he hadn't heard, retreat to the solace of regret. But something stirred within him, a whisper of defiance against a lifetime of complacency. The toasts continued, laughter scattering across the room like petals, but he was fixed on Emma, absorbing the light of her moment. The sincerity in her eyes, the hint of disappointment masked by love, carved into his conscience. What kind of father wouldn't he want to bask in that glow? The realization settled heavily. He had a choice to make, a forking path that demanded his attention, maybe even his heart. From the corner of his vision, he saw the groom standing with his own father, exchanging hearty slaps on the back. The bond between them was palpable, throbbing with years of shared experiences. That was when it hit him, the stark contrast between their joy and his stagnation. The walls of his self-imposed prison pressed in, triggering a frantic resolve. He had a whole life to amend, to weave himself back into the fabric of Emma's reality, where he belonged. The day turned into a whirlwind of mingled emotions, moving from ceremony to reception, and amidst the celebratory chaos, Michael felt a swell of urgency. He stepped away from the table, slipping outside to the quiet solitude of the garden, a space cast in twilight shadows. The air, cool against his skin, sharpened his senses for what needed to happen next. This wasn't just a moment to reflect but a catalyst for action. His mind raced, plotting a course toward vulnerability with his daughter. The words escaped him, stumbling like lost travelers, and in their wake, he found clarity. It was time to confront not just Emma but also the demons that had dictated his life choices: the marathon of work, the relentless pursuit of status as an object of pride, superficialities he could no longer ignore. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the air fill his lungs as he mentally rehearsed the conversation he had long avoided. What did he truly want? An admission, an explanation of his choices? Or perhaps it was time to shift the focus, to cultivate a new narrative. Grabbing the moment by its frayed edges, he allowed himself a glimmer of hope. He wouldn't dissolve into the background today. He would step into the light. When he returned, Emma was surrounded by loved ones. Their laughter was intoxicating, laced with nostalgia and joy, but Michael felt a renewed purpose in the pulse of the room. He approached her slowly, heart pounding, and stood just behind while she exchanged playful stories. This was his chance, a moment to reshape his legacy, to become the father she needed, and then, just as he gathered strength to interject, a minor catastrophe erupted: a spilled drink decorated with glittering liquid cascading toward Emma's pristine dress. Instinct kicked in as Michael rushed forward to assist. The chaos offered a perfect cover for the conversation he had waited too long to initiate, an unplanned detour into the depths of their relationship. Perhaps in the midst of this wild night, amid laughter and spilled cocktails, their truth could unfold raw and real. "Emma," he called gently, as she looked up, surprise etched on her face. The moment hung in suspension, the air taut with unspoken words. Would she see his sincerity through the folly of the evening? Would she embrace his attempt, however clumsy, to connect? As her eyes widened, Michael could feel the pull of fate threading a new chapter, one that could either bind them or pull them apart hopelessly. The moment of reckoning was upon them, and he had to find the courage to leap. Would he finally reveal the burden of his regrets? The confrontation with his own inadequacy beckoned like an unyielding tide. How he wished he could burst forth with honesty and reclaim the father he had left behind. The question hummed in his veins: was he ready to embrace vulnerability and invite Emma into the mess of his reality? "Dad?" Emma's voice was soft but edged with confusion. Michael stood frozen, the world around them spinning while he grappled with the weight of his decision. Theatrical antics of the celebration faded into an echo, consumed by the reality in her eyes. "Yeah, it's me," he forced the words out, each syllable stretched tight with desperation. The spilled drink was forgotten as he watched her, searching for the right entry point into their fragmented connection. He could sense others glancing over, curious, yet the urge to make this moment matter eclipsed any commitment to formality or decorum. Could we talk for a minute?" The laughter faded as she stepped away from her friends, concern etching her features. "Is everything okay?" He hesitated, grappling with years of estrangement and yearning. Regret flooded him, pungent and bitter. "I'm not sure. I want to say something important. About us." Emma glanced towards the thrumming heart of the reception, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her dress. "Can it wait?" "I mean, today is no, it can't wait," Michael interjected, his voice shaking slightly. The urgency coursing through him wasn't just about the conversation, it was lifeblood thundering in rhythm with the panic that he might lose this moment altogether. "Please." Reluctantly, she nodded and led him to a quieter corner, away from the stream of laughter and music, where the muted glow of string lights flickered above them. The air felt thick, heavy with unsaid emotions, yet invigorating, a welcome change from the numbing silence he carried for so long. "I've been really selfish, Emma," he started, his heart racing as he fought through the knot of words tangled in his throat. "When I chose work over everything else, I thought I was doing what was best. But I see now it's not what you needed. Her blue eyes searched his, filled with a complexity he had overlooked for too long, a blend of guardedness and cautious hope. You can't just pretend like everything's fine after all this time, Dad. I know, he said, his honesty raw. I don't want to pretend anymore. I've spent years lost in what I thought made me successful, but in the end, I lost sight of what truly matters. I lost you. As the words settled in the space between them, he could feel her trepidation mixed with an undeniable hunger for truth. The distance that had grown was palpable, it enveloped them like a thick fog. Yet here he was, willing to step forward. Do you know how many times I wished you were at moments that mattered? Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. Graduation, birthdays, there were times I needed you. Where were you? Each question came like a sharp edge. Michael knew he deserved it. I can't answer that without sounding like a coward, he admitted, shame creeping under his skin. It sounds like you're finally owning up to it. That's a start. Her words hung there, a bittersweet acknowledgement that their conversation was pivotal not just for him, but for her. Silence stretched between them, thick with the weight of potential healing. Michael felt the walls around his heart start to crack. In that moment, a surge of determination flickered, igniting the possibility of reclamation. Can we try again? I want to be a part of your life. Trying is a start, she replied, voice steadying as her expression softened. But it's going to take time. Trust can't just be built overnight. Time is something I'm ready to invest in. Emma took a breath, her eyes narrowing as if she were measuring his sincerity. If you're serious about being here, you need to see the real me, the good and the bad. I want that, he assured her. Not just the perfect moments, but everything. I mean it. She nodded slowly, but Michael could sense her wariness. There was still so much to unravel, and it wouldn't be easy. Yet this small step felt monumental, like they had turned a corner he never thought possible. As the music thumped back to life and the faint laughter returned, Michael took a deep breath, allowing the budding hope to flow through him. I'll do whatever it takes to earn that trust. Let's start with spending more time together, Emma suggested, her tone lightening slightly. Maybe dinner next week? I'd like that, he replied, a genuine smile breaking across his face. A moment of silence lingered between them, filled with both caution and a hint of excitement. But as they prepared to re-enter the crowd, a gnawing thought tugged at him. Would he truly be able to navigate the complexities of her life now that he was back? The challenge felt daunting, and a greater fear of past patterns resurfaced lingered on the edge of his consciousness. The corners of Michael's stomach tightened with unresolved questions as he stepped toward the noise. What would they do if he failed again? The moment of truth loomed, edging him back into the unknown. It would perhaps take every ounce of courage he had left, but this was a journey he was finally ready to embrace. But the question loomed, was he prepared for the truth that might reveal just how deep the rift had become? Michael's pulse thrummed in his ears as he moved through the crowd, Emma's words echoing in his mind. Trust can't just be built overnight. He had so much to prove, so much to learn. The laughter around him felt distant, a world apart from the heavy contemplation filling his thoughts. Days rolled into the weekend, and Michael found himself pacing through his apartment, the walls closing in as he replayed their conversation over and over. He felt the pressure of expectations weighing on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. What would this dinner be like? Would he sound sincere, or would his attempts to connect falter under scrutiny? He remembered Emma's understated grace, her thoughtful gaze piercing through his self-centered armor. He couldn't be the man who let ambition take precedence anymore. Mourning the years lost to his neglect felt inevitable, yet narcissistic. How could he shift this focus from self to her, where it should have always been? He dedicated himself to planning the dinner meticulously, consciously opting for a local restaurant known for its quiet ambience, where conversation could flow freely without force. His heart raced with both excitement and dread as he considered that it might be the first of many steps towards something better. But the nagging anxiety refused to let him rest. Be yourself, he mumbled to the mirror, trying to coax authenticity from his reflection. He remembered Emma's challenge to see the real her, and yet, he feared the potential fallout of being vulnerable. What if she shared, and he failed to respond correctly? What if his own past experiences tainted this chance? When the evening finally began, Michael arrived early, his pulse quickening with every passing moment. He watched couples enter and couples leave, longing for a sign of hope as the seconds dragged on. Just as self-doubt threatened to consume him, her figure emerged from the doorway. Taking in Emma's radiant smile, Michael felt a flicker of electricity guiding him forward. She was not a child lost in the shadows anymore. She was vibrant, layered, and so unbearably beautiful. Standing there, amidst the bustle of the restaurant, an unrelenting desire flooded him. He wanted to understand her, wholly. "Hey, Dad," Emma greeted, her voice warm and tinged with cautious anticipation. The way she said Dad filled him with a raw yearning, something he hadn't felt in such a long time. "Hi, Emma," he managed, the nervous energy uncoiling slightly as they took their seats. Between them, an abundance of unsaid words hovered, floating in the air thick with hesitation. Conversation began with the usual pleasantries: school, work, passing anecdotes, but Michael could sense the undercurrent of deeper sentiment just out of reach. "How's your job?" she asked, a touch of vulnerability peeking through her playful inquiry. Michael paused, fully aware of the implications of his professional life on their fractured relationship. "It's still busy. A lot to juggle." He understood that this was an opening, a chance to venture deeper. "But honestly, I'm trying to find a balance." "Good," she replied simply, though the careful caution remained woven into her tone. "I hope you're not too consumed by it anymore." With conversations blossoming between bites of pasta and laughs echoing softly, Michael leaned into the whispers of shared memories, allowing the freedom of honesty to guide him. "You know, I've realized that I was so far ahead of myself, focusing on the next step. I missed all the moments around me." "I missed you." Her eyes softened, searching for the honesty in his words. "Do you always think about what's next? Or can you be present?" That question struck him harder than he expected, as realization surged through him. "I think I've been terrified of being present. Fearing the pain of what I lost, fearing the uncertainty of relationships." Emma nodded thoughtfully, the conversation shifting as she shared how her art had flourished since their last encounter. He felt a swell of admiration for her courage, her vulnerability straining to break through the compacted layers of his own shame. Was it possible he could rediscover himself through her? His heart whispered yes, yet the murmur of doubt lingered, its shadow still casting dread over the possibility of his failure. "I want to know more about your art," he said, pushing through the wall he had built. "Can you bring me into that world? I want to see how you think." The warmth in Emma's expression ignited his resolve. He welcomed her in, ready to embrace whatever revelations came next about her, about themselves. As the night wore on, he realized the journey wouldn't be without its challenges. Conflict still danced on the horizon of their rekindled relationship, and the unearthing of truths would have its costs. But he was ready. Prepared to face whatever lay ahead, to confront himself at every turn. He would rise to meet the challenges, or at the very least, he would try. As they finished their meal, Emma leaned closer. "So, what now?" The moment of truth arrived. Michael's breath hitched, the weight of their next chapter heavy in the air between them. Each choice, each moment fraught with possibility. "Now," he began slowly, "we begin to explore." But just then, a text notification made Emma's face drop, the screen illuminating the worry that etched lines across her brow. "It's about Mom." His insides twisted. The journey had only just begun, and already it threatened to veer into complicated terrain. What revelations awaited them now? Michael's heart sank, a lead weight forming in his chest as he processed Emma's expression. The spark of connection they had ignited moments ago felt extinguished by the looming threat of the text message. "What about her?" he asked, the apprehension in his voice barely concealed. Emma stared at her phone, rereading the message that had turned her smile into a frown. "It seems Mom is in the hospital again. I think it's serious." The air thickened with a cacophony of unresolved emotions, fear, regret, and the lingering facade of the past. Michael felt the familiar resentment, The rage that had simmered for years about his ex-wife's unpredictable health issues. I was always available, but she chose to sabotage everything. But tonight wasn't about their volatile history. It was about Emma, about mending the strands of their connection. Moments ago, she had opened a door, and now he stood at a fragile threshold of opportunity, not just to understand his daughter, but to support her through this crisis. "Let us go to her," he said quietly, the decision taking shape in his mind. He would not retreat into old patterns of avoidance. This wasn't merely a reflection of physical absence, it now served as a catalyst for action, an invitation to confront his own failings. Emma nodded, her gaze intense. "You really want to?" "I know it's complicated." "Complicated doesn't matter now. I want to be there for you and her." His voice cracked slightly at the end. The phrase hung, encapsulating years of distance and hesitation. It was a promise, a commitment. The restaurant faded into noise as they stepped outside, the chill of the evening air weighing on him. With Emma at his side, he felt the reassuring pulse of rediscovery tinged with the daunting reality of uncertainty looming ahead. During their drive to the hospital, they spoke little, but silence fluttered with unspoken understanding. He pondered how every moment that had led him here, the years wrapped in ambition and neglect, had also led to this moment where he could begin to make amends. Arriving at the hospital, the fluorescent lights illuminated their faces, casting an unflattering glare that mirrored the harsh reality of their situation. As they entered the waiting room, Michael felt his heart racing, weighing the gravity of what lay ahead. Emma froze at the entrance, her small frame a distillation of anxiety. What if her voice trailed off, the pitiful fear of potentially losing a parent coiling tightly in her chest. He wanted to reach out, to comfort her, and yet, he was acutely aware that his years of absence had distorted trust. "Remember," he said, injecting softness into his tone, "we're here for each other. No matter what happens." It was a vow, both to himself and to her. As they sat waiting, the sterile smells of antiseptics and the ambient sounds of conversations floated around them. Michael's thoughts raced, trying to piece together everything he had learned about vulnerability and connection this evening while grappling with fresh anxiety. Would he fail her again? Moments felt stretched as they anticipated news, and he sensed Emma's discomfort rising, mirroring his own. It was time to take action. "Want to talk about your art? Maybe it'll help distract you." Emma turned her gaze toward him, the flicker of her earlier enthusiasm igniting again. "I have a portfolio I've been working on. It might be nice to share it with someone who I don't know, might appreciate it." The admission came with a hint of vulnerability, a moment that both thrilled and terrified him. "I'd love to see it," he urged. "Tell me about your process." As she began to spill forth words about colors, emotion, and self-discovery through art, his heart swelled with pride. This was the Emma he longed to know, creative, intimate, layered. He realized that this exploration would serve not only as a bridge to her world but also as a crucial part of his own healing, yet, the looming uncertainty about her mother remained, like darkness at the edges of a well-lit room. Michael glanced at his phone, the emptiness within him somehow magnifying the importance of the moment. When the doctor finally emerged, the palpable tension shattered. Michael's stomach dropped as if he were suspended on a tightrope, uncertain of where he stood. "You're friends with her, right? I need you to tell me this isn't going to end the way I'm imagining it." Their eyes met, and suddenly every choice Michael made felt amplified, as if he were on the precipice of a decision that could define the future. If he lost Emma's trust now, it might rip apart the fragile bonds he had begun to forge. "Now," he thought, "comes the prologue to everything I've avoided." The doctor approached, clipboard in hand, and he braced himself for the fate that waited in his grip. The next chapter was about to unfold, and he felt the weight of it cascade down upon him like an avalanche, both exhilarating and terrifying in its potential. As the doctor approached, Michael's heart beat in syncopation with the fluorescent lights overhead, casting an almost surreal aura around the trauma he was about to confront. Each step the doctor took magnified his anxiety, suffocating the room with tension. His mind whirred, scripts of worst-case scenarios unfurling within him. Could there be a way to mitigate this impending storm? "Mr. Singleton," the doctor said, voice steady yet tinged with the weight of the moment. "We need to discuss your ex-wife's condition." Michael felt the ground shift beneath him, familiarity returning with a subtle vengeance. He fought against repressed memories of crises past, those moments woven with disappointment and dread. But here, his focus wasn't just on the former relationship but rather on the bond he was trying to build with Emma. Gripping his chair, he clenched his jaw, striving for composure. He began, but the lump in his throat cut off his words. The doctor inhaled deeply, notes shifting against a clipboard. She's stable for now but requires intensive care. The next few hours are critical. Reluctantly, Michael met Emma's wide eyes, flooded with uncertainty. He was at the nexus of helplessness and hope, and it churned in his gut. What stood between him and her well-being? Nothing besides an ephemeral sense of his own imposed exile from family bonds. He had grown accustomed to viewing crises as obstacles rather than connections, yet the prospect of making amends loomed larger now. Maybe we can see her? Emma's soft request hung in the air, fragile as glass. After the doctor's assessment, we'll figure it out, he managed, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. With the promise of action already shaping the course, Michael felt something inside him unlock. Could he truly be present? Could he push past his fear to provide comfort? As they waited, the reality of the situation enveloped him. The stark truth was inescapable: he had spent far too many years distancing himself from life's unpredictable moments. Now, poised to enter the crucible of family dynamics, he recognized that this was about far more than his ex-wife's health. It was also about his growth. That he turned to Emma, who had half turned to her phone. "You okay?" he asked quietly, knowing full well that cell phones were often distractions from the real world, but now, they could also serve as tools of connection. "Just thinking I should check art schools. My portfolio might need focus, you know." Her voice was flat, but her eyes sparked under the weight of indecision. Michael arched an eyebrow, letting her know that it was more than just a casual thought. "You know I can help, right? I want to support you. What's your vision?" Emma hesitated, her expression caught between anxiety and inspiration. "I've been working on a piece about family and identity, like, encompassing everything we've faced." Encouraged, he leaned forward, sensing the gravity behind her words. "Have you thought about incorporating how you feel about the hospital situation into the art? It might be a powerful statement." The thought left Emma silent for a moment, before realization dawned. That could work. She bit her lip, vulnerability blossoming within her. The idea of fusing the personal with her artistic expression struck a chord. It illuminated a pathway forward, not just in her work, but also in their connection. Perhaps by sharing their burdens, they could also reshape the narrative of their relationship. Then, as if the atmosphere broke under pressure, a nurse emerged from the double doors. "Mr. Singleton, you can come in now." The moment swept Michael's breath away. An icy realization gripped him. He was stepping back into a realm of complicity, a place laden with shadows of his past actions. But for Emma, he would navigate this uncertain terrain. He met her gaze once more, guiding her with a small nod as if to say, "We will face this together." Taking a breath, Michael entered the room, the sterile smell hitting him like a wave of nostalgia. There she was, Emma's mother, lying fragile yet breathing. Sunlight catching her hair in a way that felt eerily reminiscent of better days. As the door closed behind him, he turned to find Emma standing at the threshold, her small frame silhouetted against the harsh light. In that moment, he realized that healing starts with acceptance and vulnerability, both in himself and in his relationship with Emma. But just as he felt a flutter of hope rise, a sharp ping resonated from his phone. He glanced down, heart stuttering as he read the notification, an unexpected message that would force him to confront parts of his past he could no longer ignore. What lay beneath this sudden twist? Would it shatter the fragile connection they were building or solidify it? Michael found himself at a juncture, ready to explore where this new revelation would lead him. The moment of the notification held Michael in suspended disbelief. His thumb hovered over the screen, the bright notification a stark contrast to the dim hospital room, pulsating with the life of his ex-wife. It was from an unknown number, but the content itself felt deeply familiar. The message read, "Dad, are you coming to the wedding?" He flinched, the weight of years pressing down upon him. Shadows of guilt flared to life, swift and merciless, reminding him of the choices he had made, choices that led him away from his daughter's milestones. There was no doubt the wedding was a significant event in her life, and the thought of his absence hung heavily in the air, binding him in a web of regrets. "Everything okay?" Emma's voice sliced through his internal chaos, her eyes searching his expression. He mourned the parent he had failed to be, grappling with the juxtaposition of his ex-wife's frail condition and his daughter's impending life change. "It's my daughter," he confessed, the words spilling reluctantly. "She's getting married, and It's a mess, Emma. I haven't spoken to her in years." "What do you mean? Isn't it time to reach out?" He recoiled at the suggestion, feelings of inadequacy surging. "I'm afraid," he admitted, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I'm afraid of what I might ruin, of what she might think of me. I chose my work over family. Everyone sees me as the absent father." Emma took a calculated breath, her gaze unwavering. "Or she might see you as a chance to reconnect. You have the chance to change that narrative, Michael. This could be how you start to rebuild." He wanted to argue, to cling to the fear that had long dictated his life, but there was an undeniable flicker of hope kindling amidst the shadows. His daughter deserved more than he had given, more than a phone message amidst a crisis. What if she can't forgive me?" he asked, half pleading, half terrified. "Forgiveness isn't yours to dictate," she said gently. "It's a journey for both of you. But you won't get anywhere by running from it." The words sank in, heavy yet liberating. Michael realized that the very act of confronting his fears could redefine him. He could be the father he wished he had been, not just standing on the sidelines but diving into the emotional authenticity he had long avoided. "Maybe you're right," he finally said, a sense of resolve creeping into his voice. "What should I say?" Emma smiled, her expression bespoke of support and understanding. "Tell her how you feel. All of it. Regrets, hopes, fears, everything. If you want to be in her life again, you have to own your past. It's the only way to create a future." He nodded, absorbing the gravity of her encouragement. Suddenly, the confines of the hospital began to feel less oppressive, as if the walls were shifting to accommodate new possibilities. There was more at stake now than his ex-wife's condition or the ghosts of his past. It was about stepping boldly into his role as a father again. Taking a deep breath, he raised his phone to compose a message. His fingers trembled slightly over the screen as he typed, pouring out his heart in a way he had never dared before. Just then, another nurse appeared, breaking his concentration. "Mr. Singleton, may I speak with you for a moment?" Suspicion flared within him. The hospital had become a cacophony of uncertainty, but Michael sensed that this moment would be pivotal. He cast a glance at Emma, who took a step back, her eyes revealing a mixture of encouragement and concern. "Everything all right?" she questioned. That he nodded, only half committed to that reassurance. "I'll be right back." As he followed the nurse down the corridor, uncertainty stirred within him. What news awaited him? And could he truly reconcile with the daughter he had lost? In that split second, Michael felt the fragile balance of his future teetering. He was teetering on the precipice of profound change. Would it lead him closer to healing or further into turmoil? He inhaled steadily, preparing to confront whatever awaited him, his thoughts spiraling into the unknown. What could this be about? What was the next challenge he needed to face? The nurse led Michael through the labyrinthine corridors, each step echoing the thrum of his nerves. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a surreal glow that matched the spiraling torrent of emotions within him. He was acutely aware of the weight of the moment, not just for his ex-wife, but for the daughter he had long neglected. The uncertainty gnawed at him like the hollow ache of regret. As they arrived at a quiet room at the end of the hall, the nurse paused, her expression a mixture of professionalism and empathy. "Mr. Singleton, your ex-wife is stable, but there is something we need to discuss regarding her condition," she said, shifting her weight slightly. As if preparing for an uncomfortable conversation, the mention of his ex-wife's condition brought him back to reality, a reminder of a time when decisions had to prioritize survival over emotions. "Is she deteriorating?" he asked, anxiety squeezing his chest. The hospital environment had become a volatile mixture of hope and dread, and he could feel the walls closing in. "No," she replied quickly, sensing his panic. "But there is something important about her treatment that you should know." This was the moment of truth, a crossroads. He could choose to withdraw into his shell, as he had so many times before, or press forward and confront the feelings he had kept buried. "Go on," he urged, his voice firm despite the tremble in his hands. The nurse explained how his ex-wife required more support than they had anticipated due to complications. As she went through the medical jargon, Michael struggled to absorb the information. His mind was elsewhere, buzzing with visions of his daughter's wedding and the possibility of redemption. At the mention of how family support could ease the emotional burden, something crystallized within him. Could he really step back into this fractured family unit? Had he missed his chance? Is there a social worker involved? He asked, the thought of facing a team of professionals making the pit in his stomach deepen. "Yes, we have a support team ready to assist. They can help facilitate conversations among family members if you're open to it." Michael considered this. Conversations. Conversations meant vulnerability, and vulnerability had been a luxury he couldn't afford, not since he had chosen career over family. Yet here it was, an invitation to step into a realm he'd long fled from. "Please schedule a time for me to meet with them," he said, surprising even himself with his decision. Now that he had set this in motion, he felt the pulse of dread mingle with a strand of resolve. What if his daughter rejected his attempts? The reality of her wedding stood in stark contrast to the shambles of their relationship. The nurse nodded, grateful for his willingness to engage. "I'll have someone arrange it, Mr. Singleton." With a firm grasp on that sense of determination, he returned to the hospital room, feeling the ache of opportunity and regret entwine in his chest. However, something compelled him to take a deeper look at himself, not merely as a father but as a man who needed to confront his past choices. He wanted to leave the toxic remnants of his excuses behind, but he also knew that confronting his daughter would require more than just a heart-to-heart. He had to reveal his genuine self, a man who had once made mistakes but was now fiercely committed to making things right. After re-entering the dim hospital room, an unexpected sight greeted him. A nurse had just handed his ex-wife a cell phone. A video was playing, one of those life moments captured in a seamless digital reel. And then he heard it. His daughter's laughter, echoing through the speakers as she prepared her speech for the wedding. His heart lurched, the nostalgic sound playing out like an elegy to a relationship lost. Yet intertwined with her words was an undeniable warmth. She spoke of love, family, and the kind of joy that exponentially grew with time, even in the face of absence. Just then, a heaviness settled around his shoulders as profound realization washed over him. This was not just an invitation to atone, but a profound moment to reclaim his role as a father. And as her laughter mingled with his regrets, he recognized, unequivocally, the path before him would be anything but easy. What if he could transform this moment of powerful vulnerability into a bridge back to her heart? The fleeting idea ignited a burgeoning confidence within him. Was he finally ready to face the truth? With renewed determination, he found himself staring down the corridor where the nurse had gone, a question bubbling within. Would the upcoming conversation with the social worker reveal the way back to his daughter, or would it further entrench the chasm he had created? Michael inhaled deeply, embracing the chaos ahead, knowing that only understanding and true connection could help navigate the path to redemption. Michael stood still in the dim light of the hospital room, his ex-wife's soft breathing filling the silence around him like a lullaby of what once was. The laughter of his daughter echoed still in his mind, an unbidden reminder of the joys he had forfeited. As he processed the digital spectacle of her life, half his heart yearned to fade back into the shadows, the other half desperately sought to burst forth, to shatter the protective barriers he'd constructed over the years. That he had long prided himself on his professional acumen, believing success lay in the boardroom rather than the living room. But now, faced with an overwhelming sense of urgency, he could not help but question his choices. How had he come to this? Was there a way to sort through the labyrinth of his emotions and emerge, not as a broken man, but as a father eager to rebuild? His ex-wife stirred slightly, and he turned his attention to her. This woman had once loved him, and despite their tumultuous past, still fought against the clutches of illness. It struck him then, she too had endured while he was absent. How could he let family pain shape the narrative of their lives when he had the potential to write a new chapter? The imminent meeting with the social worker loomed on the horizon, and anxiety bubbled beneath his resolve. He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, visualizing her face, his daughter's warmth, the gleam of happiness in her eyes at the upcoming wedding. The thought was both a balm and a knife. Could he look her in the eye and admit he had failed her? Could he articulate the longing to connect that had been buried under a mountain of detachment? Michael? The nurse's voice broke him from his contemplation. Is the social worker here? He asked, surprised at how steady his voice felt. Yes, she's in the waiting area, the nurse replied. Whenever you're ready. The concept of readiness was deceptive. He felt neither ready nor fully unprepared. The weight of years spent avoiding emotional confrontation steadied his knees, and for a moment, he simply breathed. This moment would follow him through the corridors of regret but could also lead him to a future he had almost resigned himself to never experiencing. Can you bring her in? His heart raced, a signal that lit every nerve in his body. Of course. The nurse retreated. As he awaited the appearance of the social worker, Michael began to dissect his own feelings. Doubts nipped at him, questioning the authenticity of his desires. Had he come here out of guilt, or was this genuine yearning for change? When the door creaked open, the social worker, Grace, stepped in, a warm smile gracing her features. Her demeanor brought a sense of ease, yet his stomach churned. Michael, thank you for agreeing to meet with me, she said, her voice soothing like a balm on an old wound. Thank you for coming, he replied, his voice quaking slightly. I want to make things right with my daughter. Her eyes flickered with understanding. That's an admirable step. You know, rebuilding relationships takes patience, not just words. Her emphasis on patience hit him hard. He realized he was not just stepping into a conversation, he was stepping into a process, an unsettling truth he had long tried to evade. He needed to be prepared to own the pain of his past mistakes without placing blame, allowing the rawness of his emotions to fuel a future he desperately desired. I'm scared, Grace, he confessed, vulnerability creeping into his words. What if I fail again? Failure is a part of the journey, but it's also a teacher, she replied gently. Facing that failure is where real growth happens. In that moment, a small door inside him creaked open, a door held shut for far too long. Perhaps he did not have to be flawless. In fact, imperfection might be the very thing that made his journey relatable, real. Suddenly, he felt a flicker of hope blossom, the possibility of change and reconnection glowing faintly against the backdrop of uncertainty. As he prepared to discuss a plan for approaching his daughter, he couldn't shake the image of her. Laughter echoing in his mind. What if confronting his past not only led to reconciliation, but also to a deeper understanding of himself? Michael leaned forward, ready to engage, not just in conversation, but in an exploration of the father he could potentially become. But could the truth of his absence serve as the foundation for rebuilding, or would it only poison their reunion? The stakes were mounting, and so was the urgency to transform what had been lost into something invaluable. The following week was a whirlwind of emotions for Michael. The sun streamed down on the hospital courtyard as he stood with Emma, chaos and uncertainty still lingering in the air. Yet he felt grounded, fortified by the resolve that had ignited during their earlier meaningful conversations. He had accepted that facing vulnerability was a key to forging a new relationship with his daughter, one rooted in honesty and connection. After a week of sleepless nights and agonizing limits on his own comfort, he had finally mustered the courage to reach out to Emma's mother, reluctant yet determined to break the silence that had persisted for years. Their exchange had unfolded in a delicately crafted text message, an invitation to meet at a local cafe. The air filled with anticipation that served as a catalyst for heartfelt communication. As he arrived at the cafe, the familiar scent of brewing coffee wrapped around him like a comforting embrace. He spotted Emma's mother seated at a corner table, eyes scanning the menu but mostly lost in deep thought. There she was, a demanding figure from a time when family conflicts often drowned out their opportunities for talking as equals. Hey, he greeted, sliding into the seat opposite her. I'm glad you agreed to meet. Me too, she replied, her voice tinged with just the right measure of forgiveness and caution. It's been long overdue. They began with pleasantries, small talk about their lives, avoiding the daunting emotional terrains that loomed ahead. But there was a dance of unspoken words simmering beneath the surface, and Michael could feel it building. "I know things have been complicated between us mainly due to our past," he began tentatively. "But I'm here today to reach out as a co-parent. I want to start anew." A flicker of surprise danced in her eyes, but she quickly masked it, folding her hands on the table. "Do you know how long we've waited for this moment?" she asked. "For you to finally take responsibility for your choices?" Michael nodded, his heart racing. Today's conversation was about accountability and admitting failures not just to his ex-wife but also to himself. "I've been reflecting on my history," he said earnestly. "The years I spent consumed by work instead of burying myself in familial relationships. It's time I stop hiding from the truth." The tone shifted, she leaned in slightly, intrigued. "And what truth is that?" "That I neglected you, Emma, and myself," he confessed. "I believed money and stability were all that mattered. I thought I was providing for Emma, but I realize now that emotional support is irreplaceable." As he spoke, he could see the impact of every word reverberate through her. "Are you willing to own that? To apologize to Emma, as well? She deserves that growth from both of us." "I am," he declared, feeling the weight of his remorse serve as the impetus that propelled him forward. "I want to be a presence in her life, no matter how hard it might be." The conversation swirled back and forth, he poured out regrets half forgotten and half recalled. They both remembered lost birthdays and missed milestones as a family, a reality that felt heavy yet necessary to acknowledge. He marveled at how cathartic it became, throwing off his emotional shackles and claiming back his agency. Hours passed, and eventually, as the sun dipped low and shadows began to stretch across the cafe, he felt lighter. They had navigated difficult waters, yet could see a glimmer of understanding blossom between them. Trust would take time to rebuild, but the foundation was now solid, rooted in truth and commitment. "Let us go together to speak with Emma," she proposed, her voice steady. "She deserves the opportunity to hear our truths side by side." "Yes," Michael replied without hesitation. The ride back to the hospital was one of shared purpose, a palpable energy between them. They both carried the weight of the decision, the impact it would have on Emma's future, shaping a bond that could grow, even flourish, over time. As they arrived, Michael took a moment to ground himself. In that moment, the ghosts of years past faded into the periphery as his resolve crystallized into a fearless intention. The time had come for him to confront his daughter, not just as the man he once was, but as one transformed by the very choices that had previously haunted him. Their eyes met, and Emma's surprise morphed into cautious acceptance when she saw her mother beside him. He felt the strength of the moment wash over him, cascading away the insecurities that once clouded his heart. "Emma," he began, mustering the courage he'd battled all week. "I've come to talk about our future, not just what has happened in the past, but what we can build together moving forward." Emma tilted her head, a flicker of understanding illuminated in her eyes. "I've hurt you. I've let you down," he said, the gravity of his words settling in the room. "But I want you to know that I am profoundly aware of my mistakes now. I hope today marks the start of a new relationship built on honesty and mutual understanding." Tears glimmered in Emma's eyes. They were not tears of despair, but rather of cautious hope. "All I ever wanted was for you to realize how much I needed you. I want to work through this too." Their embrace felt like the first stitches in the fabric of their renewed connection, threading through the holes left by years of distance. Once filled with remorse, Michael now saw a world ahead where trust could flourish anew. He had emerged victorious from the storm of his past, stepping boldly into every opportunity to show up for both Emma and himself. This moment sparked something tangible. His journey toward redemption was far from over, but now there was a certainty in his heart. He would nurture the bond with his daughter, be there for her, do the work necessary to continue to deepen their connection, reach experiences filled with authenticity and love. This was the momentum he needed. As they stood together, surrounded by the poignant beauty of healing, Michael realized that he had conquered more than just fear. He had proven to himself that change is not just possible but essential. A new legacy awaited them, one where memories could now intertwine with honesty and compassion, illuminating a path filled with promises kept. Now was the time for action, for taking strides into a future where both father and daughter could walk together, hand in hand. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss more powerful stories of personal transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. What's your takeaway? Don't wait even one more second to share this transformative journey. Send it to at least 5 friends who would benefit from this impactful conclusion.